Amidst the hustle and bustle of the city center, where people moved like shadows, a sharp voice echoed. $1 million to fix that? Only a child like you would never manage. Richard Harrington's words, from a businessman meticulously dressed in a designer suit, resonated like thunder on a sunny day. Yasmin Oliver, the girl with thick, curly hair, felt a tightening in her chest. She was only 10 meters away, but the distance felt like an insurmountable chasm. Witnesses around, 15 pairs of eyes, observed the scene with a mixture of disbelief and sarcasm. Richard, with his luxurious watch gleaming under the afternoon sun and his state-of-the-art smartphone, seemed the epitome of privilege. He maintained an haughty posture, looking at Yasmin as if she were an insignificant ant. Yasmin, on the other hand, was a picture of helplessness. Her clothes were torn and dirty, an old coat hung on her thin body, marked by the wear and tear of the streets. Her expression reflected discouragement, but also a spark of determination that still burned within her. The wager was audacious, $1 million to fix the engine of a luxurious sports car that looked more like a work of art than a vehicle. The deadline? 30 minutes. And the punishment for failure? Mockery and a loss of dignity that could follow Yasmin for life. Deep down, Yasmin knew that if she didn't try, she would just be one more among millions of invisible people, those who get lost on the streets of great American cities. 2 hours earlier, Yasmin had been in a temporary shelter, but was expelled after a fight between residents. Her stomach growled, and the only thing she thought about was how she would get money to buy something to eat. At the shelter, she had tried to fix a broken bicycle, but the effort seemed useless now. The toolbox, her only inheritance from her father, lay beside her, like an extension of her dreams and skills, even if no one around her could see it. The knowledge Yasmin possessed wasn't a gift from schools or courses, but rather the inheritance from a mechanic father who taught her with patience and love. Since the age of 6, she had watched him with bright eyes, absorbing every movement, every word. "You have a gift, Yasmin," he would say. And with that, she learned not only to fix things, but to believe she was special, even when the world treated her as invisible. While others saw only a homeless girl, Yasmin had eagle eyes. She quickly identified the fault in Richard's car engine, a detail no one else noticed. The memory of her father fixing damaged engines enveloped her like a warm blanket on a cold night. It was an intimate connection, a memory that brought her comfort, but also pain. For a brief moment, fear paralyzed her. The scorn she might face made her hesitate, but the memory of her father whispering in her ear that she was special was stronger. With a deep sigh, Yasmin stood up, her toolbox swinging at her side, and took a step towards the car. She didn't know this decision would change her life forever. The tension in the air was palpable, and her heart pounded at a frantic pace. It was the decisive moment, where destiny met courage. She was about to challenge the world that despised her. As Yasmin approached Richard's car, her fingers touched the toolbox she always carried. The cold metal and worn plastic seemed more than just a simple set of tools. They were the essence of her struggle and the living memory of her father. The faded and dented box was a testament to all her attempts to fix what was broken, both in objects and in life. The contact made her feel a comforting warmth, as if the spirit of Mark, her father, was by her side, encouraging her to proceed. Mark, a 38-year-old mechanic, was Yasmin's heart and soul. He had passed away a year and a half ago, on September 12, 2021, and his death left an immense void in the girl's life. Yasmin clearly remembered that fateful day. The hospital was a cold and indifferent place, with corridors full of people lost in their own struggles. As she waited, she watched the hours slip like sand through her fingers. Uncertainty and hope were constant companions, but hope soon faded. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere was tense and heavy. The doctors, too busy, ignored Mark's pleas. His last whispers still echoed in Yasmin's mind. "Take care of your toolbox, Yasmin." He repeated it 3 times, as if it were an enchantment, a precious piece of advice she struggled to understand. But the hours passed, and the cruel reality set in. Multiple organ failure cost him his life, while the money that could have saved her father was wasted on aesthetic treatments for the rich. The $200 cost of medication to save her father contrasted drastically with the $5,000 spent on unnecessary procedures for those who could afford it. The injustice of that situation burned in her heart. Yasmin wondered how many lives could be saved if the system wasn't so cruelly divided between rich and poor. Each time she thought about it, anger boiled within her, mixed with a deep sense of powerlessness. The mechanical ability Yasmin had was a rare gift, an intuition that had manifested since she was 8 years old. Her father was the one who helped her discover this talent. "You have a gift, Yasmin," he had said when he saw her fix an old bicycle. The phrase echoed in her mind, a light amidst the darkness that surrounded her. She knew that 1 in 500 children possessed this ability, and in some way, it made her feel special, yet isolated. Yasmin never had the opportunity to attend school. Her learning came from a mosaic of experiences. In her father's workshop on Flower Street, scavenging for parts in dumpsters around the city, and in mechanics books she found in libraries that accepted her for a moment. Memorizing over 100 pages and spending countless hours observing her father shaped her, but also distanced her from a world that saw her as invisible. The pattern of oppression she witnessed was reflected in her own life. The tightening in her chest intensified whenever she remembered her father and what she had lost. "If I succeed, I can change my life," Yasmin thought, determination growing within her. She knew this was more than a simple opportunity. It was a chance to claim her place in the world, to assert herself as someone who could overcome all the expectations surrounding her. Yasmin's eyes shone with a new light. As she prepared to act, the voices in her mind became clearer, each filled with love and hope. The crowd was silent, watching the girl who stood before everyone, ready to defy logic and doubt. She wasn't just fighting for $1 million. She was fighting for her identity, her future, and, above all, for the memory of her father. With the toolbox in one hand and determination in the other, Yasmin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. That box of opportunities and challenges was about to unfold before her eyes, and she was not willing to be intimidated. The city, with all its cruel beauty, now seemed a battlefield where every move would count. Yasmin was ready to face not only Richard, but also the world that had forgotten her. With a deep sigh, Yasmin approached the smoking engine of the car, the crowd's gazes burning on her skin. The tension was palpable. Suddenly, the engine began to release thick smoke, and Richard's expression changed. His eyes, which had previously shone with contempt, now were their eyes wide with panic. "What's happening?" he cried, his voice cracking under the pressure. Yasmin Oliver felt her heart pound, a drum echoing in her mind. The pressure was mounting, and time was slipping away like sand through her fingers. The mall's security guard, a robust man with a skeptical gaze, was called over. "Wait 5 minutes," he said, trying to calm Richard. But Yasmin Oliver knew it was too late. The car's engine was already catching fire, flames dancing like demons in the night. The crowd's voices murmured in panic. "It's just an electrical problem," one of the guards shouted. But Yasmin Oliver knew it was beyond that. The car was engulfed in flames, and every second counted. Yasmin Oliver couldn't stay silent any longer. "I can fix this!" she cried, her voice sharp, cutting through the chaos. The gazes, previously skeptical, now turned to her, the crowd silent, absorbing the bravery of a young girl challenging a man of power. The passerby who first noticed her presence began to applaud, an echo of hope spreading among the people. But Richard wasn't convinced. "You're just a little girl," he scoffed, his words cutting like glass. Richard hurled a series of insults, each one crueler than the last. "This is a rich person's problem, and you have no idea what you're doing," resonated in the air, drawing laughter and jeers from 5 people in the crowd. Yasmin Oliver felt the pain of those words, as if they were knives plunged into her heart. She saw a woman filming with her smartphone, a look of disdain on her face, and her urge to retreat was strong. But there was something within her that refused to give in. Taking a deep breath, Yasmin Oliver gathered her courage. "The problem is in the ignition system," she shouted, and the certainty in her voice made some spectators raise their eyebrows. Looking at Richard, she added, "I'll need some space." Her words were firm, and she felt the adrenaline rising as she prepared to act. "I'll fix it in 20 minutes, she promised, her gaze fixed on the burning car. "The car will run again." The crowd's murmur grew, a mix of skepticism and hope. Richard, in an attempt to demoralize her, took a napkin and, with a designer pen, began to write. It was an impromptu contract, but the words etched there were cruel. "If you fail, I will expose you publicly. You will be the laughingstock of the town." The mocking tone of his voice made Yasmin Oliver tremble, but she held firm. She knew that failing meant losing more than just money. It meant losing the dignity she had fought so hard to preserve. The crowd was silent, absorbing the tension that hung in the air. Yasmin Oliver felt a visible tremor in her hands, but there was no more time to hesitate. A 5-second pause stretched on, and the weight of expectations seemed almost unbearable. "I accept," she finally said, her voice firm as steel. Murmurs of astonishment surrounded her as the crowd adjusted to the new reality. The security guard tried to protest. "Wait, this could be dangerous!" But Yasmin Oliver was determined to prove her worth, not just to others, but to herself. With the crowd watching, Yasmin Oliver knelt in front of the car, her toolbox beside her. Adrenaline pulsed through her veins as she focused. The engine still fumed, but there was a beauty in the urgency of the moment. Every movement she made was a dance between hope and uncertainty. This was her moment, and she was about to prove to the world, and to herself, that she was more than just a homeless girl. She was a mechanic, a fighter, and she was willing to do whatever it took. Time seemed to stop as her agile hands moved swiftly among the hot parts. Each click of a tool against metal echoed like a drumbeat, and the crowd held its breath, united in a moment of expectation. She wasn't just fixing a car, she was fixing her own life, and in doing so, recognizing her strength. And so, the stakes escalated, with Yasmin Oliver ready to face any challenge that came her way. Yasmin Oliver, her heart pounding, looked at the car's exposed engine and remembered a manual her father had left. He always said, "The ignition system is the heart of the engine." That phrase echoed in her mind like a mantra, a guide for what she needed to do. She needed to access that knowledge, not just to fix the car, but to redeem herself in front of everyone. With renewed focus, Yasmin Oliver concentrated. The fuming engine before her was a puzzle, and she was determined to solve it. She remembered a book she had read in the library, an automotive mechanic's manual. "You are more than you seem, Yasmin Oliver," she thought. "You have a gift." That memory strengthened her, and the certainty that she could solve the problem enveloped her. Looking at the crowd watching in silence, a curious spectator began to search on his phone. "The quote is true," he confirmed, and a murmur of approval spread through the crowd. With the light of hope shining in her eyes, Yasmin Oliver prepared. First, she quickly washed her hands on the dirty ground, feeling the cold pavement against her warm skin. Then she organized her tools, a wrench here, pliers there, each piece with its purpose. As she examined the engine, she noticed the heat emanating from it, and even so, she wasn't intimidated. Fear was an adversary, but determination was her ally. Yasmin Oliver's hands were small, agile, and full of scars and calluses, marks of her life on the streets and her constant struggle. She looked at those hands and remembered what her father always said, "Believe in yourself. You can do incredible things." And with each movement, she felt energy flow through her body, connecting her to her father's legacy. Time seemed to slip through her fingers, but there was no room for distractions. Every second counted. As she worked, a wave of vulnerability hit her. "I've never fixed such an expensive car," she admitted, almost a whisper, her eyes fixed on the engine parts. The air around her felt heavy, as if the people around her were nervous for her. "She's going to get hurt," someone in the crowd murmured, while others expressed concerns about her safety. But there was an unwavering determination within her. Yasmin Oliver couldn't give up now. Richard, noticing her hesitation, approached. "Do you really think you can fix this?" he challenged her, his sarcastic smile gleaming. His gaze was a mix of skepticism and contempt, but Yasmin Oliver kept her head held high. Looking at him, she said, "Yes, I can." Her voice carried a firmness that surprised everyone, causing some in the crowd to exchange astonished glances. There, in that fraction of a second, she felt the strength of all the voices that supported her, even if in silence. A boy in the crowd began to count. 5! Yasmin Oliver opened the car's hood, her hands moving with an agility that surprised everyone. 10! She began to tinker with the parts, tools dancing in her hand. 15! The engine let out a loud grinding noise, and the smoke slowly began to dissipate. The tension grew, and the crowd joined in a collective count, forming a nervous chorus that pulsed with Yasmin Oliver's heartbeat. The engine's heat and the crowd's pressure mingled, creating a storm of emotions. The atmosphere was vibrant. Expectation hung in the air. Yasmin Oliver felt alive, every second pulsing in her veins, as if she were on an emotional roller coaster. Adrenaline propelled her, and the determination to prove her worth kept her focused. Then it happened. At the exact second, the count reached 27:15. A thunderous sound cut through the air. Crack! It was the sound of a part being correctly adjusted, resonating like a promise in the air. Everyone in the crowd held their breath, and a collective gasp escaped their lips. Yasmin looked at the engine and saw the light of success beginning to shine. The panic that had previously dominated Richard's face was now replaced by disbelief. A wave of emotions washed over Yasmin. The engine began to run smoothly, and the car, which had been in flames, now roared to life. Richard, who had been so confident, now watched in disbelief as Yasmin started the car. The sound of the engine turning into a powerful roar was a symphony of victory. Yasmin smiled, tears streaming down her face, a combination of relief and joy. She had done it. The car was running. The crowd erupted in cheers of joy, a sea of applause and smiles that lit up the sunny day. 10 people jumped. Others cried with happiness. The energy was contagious. Yasmin felt as if she were floating. She wasn't just fixing a car, she was fixing her life, and with it, the lives of those around her. Richard, on the other hand, was in a state of shock, collapsing in a mix of despair and rage. A spectator hugged her from behind, emotional, grateful for that display of resilience. "You're incredible, Yasmin," he exclaimed, as the warmth of the crowd enveloped her. "You really did it." And amidst the celebration, Yasmin realized that it wasn't just the car that had been fixed. Something deeper was happening. She felt whole again, as if she had recovered a part of herself she thought lost forever. "How did you do that?" Richard finally managed to ask, his voice trembling, as disbelief took over his face. Yasmin, with a determined glint in her eyes, just smiled. "Because I always believed I could," she replied. And at that moment, she knew her story was just beginning. The crowd continued to applaud, and life around her seemed more vibrant than ever. Yasmin wasn't just a homeless girl. She was the mechanic who defied the odds, and her story was about to unfold into a new narrative. The world was about to open up before her, and with her toolbox by her side, she was determined to explore every opportunity that arose. The true value of her skills and determination was just beginning to be revealed, and Yasmin knew she was ready to face any challenge life had in store for her. After the crowd's clamor, Richard, still in shock, slowly recovered, and with an expression of disbelief, approached Yasmin. He pulled a crumpled napkin from his pocket, where he had quickly written a contract before the competition. With a hesitant gesture, he handed it to her. "Here it is," he said, his voice trembling. $1 million. As promised. The amount was written there, in bold letters, but the words were loaded with a bitter tone. Yasmin hesitated. Around her, people watched, some with expressions of expectation, others with a look of admiration. She felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but the allure of money didn't tempt her. "That's not what I want," she murmured, her voice firm, but full of emotion. The crowd fell silent, waiting for her to continue. As the tension in the air intensified, a group of young people in the crowd began recording the scene with their smartphones. The video quickly spread on social media. In a few minutes, the hashtag #ChushFix, this was trending, with thousands of views and comments. "She's amazing!" and "She deserves it!" were just some of the messages flooding the platforms. Notifications popped on their phones, and soon the numbers began to climb exponentially. 2,000 views, 10,000 views, 1 million views, shouted an excited boy as he checked his phone. Yasmin, though still confused by the situation, felt a wave of support growing around her. The excitement of the crowd was contagious, and she couldn't help but smile. But despite the adrenaline and excitement, Yasmin couldn't bring herself to touch the napkin. She recoiled, taking a step back, even with the eager stares of the crowd weighing on her. Silence fell again as their gazes turned to her, confused. "What are you doing?" asked a friend nearby, his face reflecting concern. You should take the money. But Yasmin, with a firm look, replied, I didn't do this for money. The refusal was clear in her voice, and the crowd was divided between surprise and admiration. She didn't want her worth to be defined by a sum of money. What mattered to her was the struggle, the courage, and the opportunity to show the world that she was more than just a homeless girl. Yasmin raised her toolbox, her most precious connection to her father. My father taught me everything I know, she said, her voice now stronger, filled with emotion. He died in a hospital because of an injustice. He said, take care of your toolbox. And that's exactly what I did. Tears streamed down her face as the crowd listened in silence. She continued, the strength of her words echoing in the air. He died waiting for medications that cost only $200, while $5,000 was wasted on unnecessary treatments for the rich. He should be alive, but the system wouldn't let him. Indignation mingled with sadness, and people began to murmur, feeling the force of the reality Yasmin was exposing. The crowd was now completely captivated. Yasmin spoke about her experiences, about how she spent nights in shelters, about the times she had to hide to sleep, and about the daily struggle simply to survive. Each word was a window into her soul, and everyone there could see the truth in her eyes. I'm not just a homeless girl. I'm Yasmin, a mechanic, and I want people to believe in their own worth. Her words echoed like a hymn of courage, and the crowd began to applaud again, but now with renewed fervor, as if they were applauding not just Yasmin, but everyone who fought for dignity. Richard, who had been so confident, now seemed small before that immensity of emotions. He shook his head, as if trying to process everything he had just heard. Yasmin looked him in the eyes, and something changed. She no longer saw just an antagonist, but a man who also needed redemption. I don't want your money, Richard, Yasmin said, her voice soft but firm. I want you to use your position of power to help people like me, not to belittle us. The crowd fell silent, absorbing her words. Richard, now visibly touched, simply nodded, as if beginning to understand the depth of his actions. The scene transformed into a celebration not just of Yasmin's victory, but of all who, like her, faced daily challenges. The significance of what she had accomplished began to spread, and hope ignited in the hearts of many. Yasmin was about to become an icon of change, and the life that once seemed full of shadows was now immersed in light. The crowd began to disperse, but not before uniting in a vibrant chorus of support. We believe in you, Yasmin, and you're a hero, were cries that echoed as she watched, her heart full of gratitude. Yasmin knew that her journey was just beginning, but now she had a voice, a story, and a mission. And with her toolbox in hand, she was ready to shape her future. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Yasmin knew that, regardless of the challenges, she was more than capable. The true value of her skills and determination was finally being recognized, and with that, she felt stronger than ever. The city was full of opportunities, and she was determined to seize them. Yasmin Oliver, the girl who fixed a car and, in doing so, began to fix her own life and the lives of others, was just beginning to write her story. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster for Yasmin. The story of her brave act spread rapidly, not only on social media, but also in local news. She became a symbol of hope and resilience, her image appearing in newspapers and television shows. What was once a solitary struggle was now being recognized by many. People began to rally around her, not just as admirers, but as a community willing to help. Yasmin frequently received messages of support from strangers who identified with her struggle. You're an inspiration, and thank you for showing us that we can fight, were some of the notes that reached her. This made Yasmin feel as if she finally had a purpose. The toolbox that once only represented her connection to her father now symbolized a future of possibilities. With the new visibility, Richard, who was the antagonist in her story, received intense criticism. Social pressure and community sentiment began to affect him in ways he had never imagined. To try and mend his damaged image, Richard decided to approach Yasmin. He invited her to a meeting in his office, promising he wanted to do the right thing. Yasmin was hesitant. What does he really want from me? She wondered. But her determination to use her voice for the greater good led her to accept the invitation. Perhaps this could be an opportunity to change something bigger, she reflected, resolved to face this new challenge. As she prepared for the meeting, She revisited her toolbox, now with a renewed sense of purpose. In Richard's elegant office, surrounded by awards and accolades, Yasmin felt like a fish out of water. He greeted her with a smile, but there was tension in the air. "Yasmin, I heard you did something incredible. I want to help you reach more people and make a difference." His words were calm, but Yasmin wasn't fooled. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, distrust evident in her voice. Richard explained that, after the incident, he had reflected on his life and his influence. "I realized I have a responsibility. I want to use my power to help, but I need your help to understand what people truly need." Yasmin remained silent, assessing the sincerity in his gaze. She knew he had much to learn, just as the world needed to change. "If you truly want to help, then help create opportunities for young people who, like me, are struggling," she said. "It's not just about money. It's about changing lives." Richard, realizing the gravity of Yasmin's words, agreed. Together they began to develop a mentorship program for at-risk youth, where Yasmin would lead workshops on mechanics and practical skills. The idea was not only to teach, but also to give a voice to young people and show them that they could be more than their circumstances. With each passing day, Yasmin felt more empowered. She wasn't just fixing cars, she was fixing lives. The program began to gain traction, and soon a small workshop was established in a part of the city that once seemed forgotten. The young people who arrived were like her, full of dreams, but without clear paths to achieve them. The results quickly became apparent. The workshop filled with laughter and learning as Yasmin taught each young person not only about mechanics, but also about the importance of self-esteem and resilience. They learned to fix, but also to dream. What was once a space marked by pain and despair was now transforming into a home of hope and opportunities. Richard frequently visited the workshop, bringing materials and resources, but more importantly, he listened. He began to understand that true power lies not just in having money, but in using that position to uplift others. Yasmin and he formed an unusual partnership, and the community began to notice the transformation, not only in their lives, but in the very social structure that was once so oppressive. Deep down, Yasmin was changing too. The girl who once felt invisible now saw herself as a leader. She remembered her father's words, "You are special, Yasmin." And now, looking at the young people she taught, she saw the same light that once shone within her. The past did not define her. It was just a part of her story. Each new day, Yasmin faced her own fears and insecurities, but now she had a community that supported her. Love and hope were palpable in the air. She finally understood that true strength came from being vulnerable and honest, and that made her stronger at the same time. As the program grew, Yasmin dreamed bigger and bigger. She wanted to expand the workshops, create a movement. She began planning a large community fair where young mechanics could showcase their skills and share their stories. It would be a day of celebration, not just of achievements, but also of the struggles everyone faced. The future seemed endless, and Yasmin knew that, with determination and genuine support, she could change lives, including her own. The toolbox, now a symbol of transformation, was always by her side. She wasn't just a homeless girl. She was Yasmin Oliver, the mechanic who became a transformative force. And with her story, she was just beginning to write the next chapter. And so, in the heart of the city, a new light shone, a light of hope and change, a testament that even starting from dark places, it was possible to find a path to the light. The day of the community fair finally arrived. Yasmin woke before the sun, her heart racing with anticipation. The smell of fresh coffee and homemade pancakes filled the small workshop that had now become a home for so many young people like her. The energy in the air was palpable. The community was excited and united, ready to celebrate the achievements and determination of its youth. The stalls were set up, filled with tools, car parts, and handmade products by the young people from the workshop. Each stand told a story. Each piece displayed was a testament to hours of dedication and learning. Yasmin watched everything with a smile, knowing that every young person there had overcome personal challenges to reach this moment. Special guests arrived for the fair, including community leaders, teachers, and even some journalists who wanted to cover the story of the transformation. Yasmin, nervous, looked at the familiar and unfamiliar faces surrounding her. She felt the pressure, but also the excitement of being in the spotlight, a role that once seemed so distant. Richard was by her side, offering silent support. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, an encouraging smile on his face. Yasmin nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yes, I am," she replied, her voice resolute. She knew this was the moment to show the world what she had built. With a microphone in hand, Yasmin stepped onto the small stage set up in front of the workshop. The audience gathered in a circle, their expressions varying between curiosity and anticipation. "Thank you all for being here today," Yasmin began, her voice firm but slightly trembling. "Today we celebrate not only what we've learned, but also who we are and what we can achieve when we come together." She looked at the young people around her, all smiling. "Each of us has a story, and our story is important. I'm Yasmin Oliver, and I was a homeless girl. But today, I'm a mechanic, and I'm here to say that we can all be more than our past. We can change our lives and the lives of others." As she spoke, Yasmin saw the faces in the crowd light up. The empathy and support were palpable. "This fair is a celebration of our achievements and what we can build together," she continued. "Let's be the change we want to see in the world, helping each other find our way." Applause echoed, and Yasmin felt a wave of gratitude. She knew she had created something powerful, a movement that not only helped her, but could help many others who struggled as she once did. It was an opportunity to transform lives, and that was the true mission. The fair continued with skill demonstrations, live car repairs, and young people sharing their stories of overcoming adversity. Every laugh, every conversation, every interaction was proof that change was possible. Yasmin felt fulfilled, knowing she was making a difference. Richard approached her in the crowd, looking at the success all around. "You did it, Yasmin. Look what you've created," he said, admiringly. Yasmin smiled, her heart full. "We did it, Richard. This is just the beginning." As the afternoon progressed, the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the fair. Yasmin watched the young people dancing, laughing, and having fun. She knew that, regardless of the challenges they would still face, there was a new path ahead. The toolbox she always carried was no longer just an inheritance. Now it was a symbol of hope and possibilities. "Let's build more workshops, more opportunities," Yasmin thought, dreaming big. "Let's create a future where no one feels invisible." Determination burned within her, and the idea of a larger movement began to take shape in her mind. As the last rays of sun disappeared, Yasmin looked at the starry sky, feeling the cool night breeze. She finally understood that, although the path ahead was still full of challenges, she was no longer alone. There was an entire community willing to fight by her side. And so, with a smile on her face and her heart full of hope, Yasmin Oliver, the mechanic who defied the odds, knew that her journey was just beginning. The new light shining over the city was a testament that change was possible, and that together they could build a better future.